G'day all you beautiful people, welcome to Port Adelaide's Supercoach preview. Can't wait to get stuck into it, but we've got Port Adelaide, Richmond and St Kilda coming this week, and we've got more non-Supercoach videos coming out as well. Welcome to all the new subscribers that I've gained in the last week. Really appreciate all of you jumping on board, and if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed already, please do so. I would really appreciate it. Trying to get to 500 before round one starts. It's a long task, but I honestly think that we can get there. As always, we begin with the defense, we begin with the best pick, and I'm actually going to throw a curveball here and say no one. And the reason why there's no one is there are two players on my watch list. None of these guys really stand out, but the guys on my watch list are guys that could come into the team, I think, more during the year than at the start of the year. And let's start with Dan Houston, who averaged 61.8 from rounds 16 to 20 last year. Now, he did finish with 96.3 in the last 3 weeks, which is encouraging, but you've got to take the good with the bad. When you've got that inconsistency, you need to look at both sides of the coin. So can he stay back? When he was pushed to a wing or even half forward, even through the midfield, he wasn't scoring that fantastically. But if he sticks to his back pocket half-back role, he can flourish there and become a genuine pod throughout the year. I know he's burned coaches in the past, but that's why he's on the watch list. We need to see that he can have some solidity in that defensive role. If he can't get that, then he's a no chance. If he can get that, he's a best pick. That's kind of why he's on the watch list. And the other player on the watch list, who only averaged 63.5 on a 6-week stretch from round 15 to 20, is Allir Allir. Now, he did finish with a 116 average in the last 3, which is juicy. But like I said before, you got to take the good with the bad sometimes. I think Allir might be helped out by the fact that they got Sam Skinner, and I'm going to touch on him more later on. But if Allir Allir can genuinely just be the intercept defender and not have to play a key back role, genuinely think he can be a top 6 defender. However, how long do we wait and see until we bring him in? It's definitely going to have to be when the season starts. So maybe he is an upgrade option for the defense, potentially, given the fact that it might take him a little bit to get that score up. But he is the epitome of someone to watch. So Houston and Allir on the watch list for me. Saw him in a lot of teams late last year, and I could understand why, but he's going nowhere near my team this year, and that is Trent McKenzie, the Cannon. Did have some genuinely good scores, but he can't play on the mountains as well as I think Port Adelaide want him to, which is why they got Skinner in the first place. And I don't think he's got a role in that 22 because they've already got, Houston, Darcy Byrne-Jones, these guys that can rebound really, really well. I think he gets squeezed out, and if he does play, I don't think it's going to be all 22 games. And I think it's going to be a bit sporadic, so I'm just going to stay away from it entirely. When you trade up to get a guy in the draft, especially early, they have to love what they see, and it would only get more and more from there because Josh Sinn is one of the more respected and high work ethic players from the draft. 155k, so you are going to need to see him lined up in round 1 to have him in your side early, but whenever he does come into the team, and I'm betting it will be this year, even though I'm a bit apprehensive on Victorian kids starting so early, I've got a lot of faith in Sinn. And I feel like once he gets that Port Adelaide spot, it's going to be very hard to kick him out. Very good user of the footy, very high IQ. Not getting talked about a lot. I understand why, because Port are a hard team to break into, but he's going to be one of those guys I think that we kind of forget about when the season starts because he won't be there. But as soon as he's named, everyone's going to jump on board, and rightly so. He won the Brownlow last year. Why else wouldn't you be a best pick? But that is Ollie Wines. Now, there are two sides to the Ollie Wines coin when it comes to him in Supercoach. Is that 112.5 going to be his ceiling? A Brownlow medal, you can't really get much better than that. So are you not stuck per se, but are you happy with having a guy who's, going to be around that 112 mark? Are you happy to have that all year? Are you happy to wait and see how he goes? That is the question that you need to ask yourself. Or with the fact that Robbie Gray and Travis Boak are getting older and older and might not spend as much time in the midfield, is it going to be left all to him and he might explode and get to 120, 125? That is genuinely the question you need to ask yourself. For me, even though he is the best pick, it's going to be a struggle to see him in round 1 in my side. But if he starts like a house on fire, he's going to be too difficult to ignore and sooner or later going to be too high in price for a lot of people to get him. So if it doesn't work out and you start him, and you do need to trade him. I know a sideways trade does suck, but we've got 35 trades, so an extra might help there. Granted, COVID might stuff us all up, and that's why we need the extra trades in the first place, but he definitely is the best pick for Port Adelaide's midfield. If there is a player report that is going to benefit from the aging stars moving out of that centre bounce, it's going to be Karl Amon. Average 94.3, picked up 8 tons last year, but only 2 of those were 110 or less. So when he went large, he went large. And I believe that inconsistency came in when he played a half midfield, half wing role, which is really, really interesting. I feel like Port Adelaide need the X factor, the class and the speed that he brings at centre bounces. They got killed in clearances in a couple of key finals, and I think that's something they need to address. Now, whether that's him or Connor Rozee, who knows? But given the fact that Amon has played more time in the midfield, I'm going to back him in. And last but not least, the fact he didn't make the All-Australian team on a wing or even a bench spot is an absolute disgrace, same as Paul Seedsman. Still think he's going to average triple figures, but there's no way Travis Boak is going near my side. The only way Travis Boak would be brought into your team is if he does an Andy Brayshaw type price dive, in which case when you pick him up, you'll be picking him up really cheap for a guy that is probably going to average 100 for the rest of the year, which although is helpful, might save you a bit of cash later on down the road. But for the first 2 months of the season, I can't see Travis Boak being in my team. I can't see him being in anyone else's side either. So more draft relevant, probably as a sort of a late pick. You might be able to pick him up, but for classic, no. And the cash cow for Port Adelaide's midfield is Jackson Mead. He is the Will Gould of defenders. We're just waiting for him to make a case and make his spot. But until then, we're not going to go near him. I don't think anyone else is going to go near him either. But if he does star in Match Sim or in the preseason competition, he'll probably be a popular rookie. It's been a bit like that throughout his career. I know people are searching for Pod Ruckman, and Scotty Lycett I know won't be the sexiest name that comes off the page, but with Peter Laddams gone, he is the number one ruckman. Now, when you're looking for a Pod Ruckman, being the number one ruckman is the first thing that you need to look at. If he's fit and plays 22 games, he's going to be the number one ruck for 22 games. Now, how much is his average going to jump? Is he the kind of ruckman that you'd keep all year? Not really. He might just be a stepping stone in order to get the cheapest out of Gordon, Grundy, Nick Nat and Darcy when they fall, if they fall, of course. But for draft, goodness gracious me, this guy's a nugget. But I'm going to stop talking about the draft. This is all about classic. Draft dissections will be coming very, very shortly. Can't wait to get stuck into those. But as far as a pod goes and you need to save a bit of coin, I think that I've seen worse ruckman in that R2 spot than Lycett, which is very interesting. I don't know what it is about Zaks, but my two favourite non-Hawks are both Zaks, and that's Zak Bailey from Brisbane and Zak Butters from Port, and he is the best choice for the forward line. He's got breakout written all over him. I still think he plays more half-forward, but this man has shown that he can score really well as a half-forward player. I know injuries interrupted his season last year, but that 81 is so far unders. It is absolutely unbelievable. 440k is not a lot to pay. I know a lot of people are apprehensive about, let's say, a Treloar, who's only 40k more expensive. Zak Butters, fully fit, is going to play, and play well. Ken Hinkley bloody loves this kid, as do I. I really want him in my team. If I had a team of players that I really, really wanted, my squad would have 48 in them, but he is one that is genuinely knocking down the door, and can't wait to see just how fit he looks in the role he plays in the community series, but he still is the best pick. Watch list, Connor Rozee, need him to play more midfield time to become relevant. This guy could genuinely become a top 10 player in the competition in a couple of seasons, in my opinion. But can he be let loose? That is the question that needs to be asked, and something that Ken Hinkley needs to bring in. Again, I know I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Boak and Gray are not getting any younger, and they need to know what the next gen of their midfield is, and why can't it be Rozee and Butters rotating around Wines and Amon? And I know I've missed guys in there, Sam Powell-Pepper, but if Zak Butters or Connor Rozee sort of goes into the midfield, why can't Sam Powell-Pepper take that half-forward spot? He was fantastic in a couple of occasions. I know he's had his mental battles, but that's Sam Powell-Pepper, by the way. But again, if he's feeling good in the environment, there is a spot there for him. And if Port Adelaide are losing momentum in a game, Connor Rozee is exactly the type of player that can get that momentum back and lead Port in the right direction. I think it would be a good move, but geez, I need to see it before I consider him. No chance, hurts, because he's been one of my favourite players the last 15 years, but Robbie Gray, he's not going to make the jump to a premium. 34, still going to be so dangerous around the goals, and he might pop up for 120, maybe 3 times next year, but I don't think it's worth having him in your classic team, and it does suck that he's sort of SuperCoach retired in a way. Fingers crossed he proves me wrong, but as I sit here recording now, you can't go with him. He's the defender forward, which is why I've left him till last, but Port Adelaide identified that they needed to get a tall back and got Sam Skinner, and it only makes sense that he would play early. And if he can play, the best ability for a rookie is availability. So if he's there, he's going to be okay. Is he going to churn out massive scores? Well, I'm actually not 100% sure about that, because I know the NEFL or the VFL as it was last year, you know, isn't the highest quality, and those SuperCoach scores may not necessarily translate, but he is an intercept defender who can shut down his opponent. So if he and Allir Allir can figure out what the best matchups are, he could definitely give you good scores. He only needs to sort of double in price and get up towards 250, and you might be able to cash him in. The defender forward is so versatile. If you've got another defender forward like maybe a Rhett Bazzo or a Will Kelly, they are so interchangeable. It's fantastic. If you need to downgrade him to a defender, get him into your defender spot and bring another defender in. If you need to get him to a forward, you've got that as well. So good, and he's currently in my team. So for Daz's final word, I actually have only got Sam Skinner in my team right now. I love Karl Amon as a pod option, and I'm debating on whether to have Ollie Wines at the start. Still think Allir Allir is going to be someone that I think about bringing into the team at some point during the year. But that's it for Port Adelaide, guys. How do you think they're going to go this year? I think that if they play a preliminary final away from home, I know I've said it before, that they are going to make the granny and probably win the flag. But I think they're definitely one of the contenders. I hope you are well. Richmond, St Kilda are coming on Wednesday and Friday. Hopefully, not one, but 2 non-Supercoach videos coming as well. But be safe, my friends. Be well. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.